When a little boy found himself lost in the African bush, he couldn't help but feel small and scared. And when a lion came into view, he was sure it was the end. But what happened next set him on a journey that's almost too incredible to believe. Ethan was on holiday in Africa with his family when he decided to wander off into the bush for a bit of exploring. What started as an innocent adventure quickly turned into a serious problem. When Ethan finally looked up and realized he was completely lost, fear gripped him hard. And soon enough, something happened that proved his fear was well-founded. Ethan stopped right where he was, trying to figure out where he might be. He couldn't believe he had been so careless, wandering away from his campsite like that. Hoping he might spot the camp nearby, he climbed halfway up a tree to get a better look. But what he saw next made his heart drop. Just a few meters away, partly hidden in the bush, was a lion crouched low and staring straight at him. Right then, he knew the lion had probably been following him for some time without him even noticing. Now he had a terrible choice to make. He could stay in the tree and be somewhat safer for the moment, or he could try to make a run for it. Deep down, he felt that staying put might be even more dangerous, especially with other predators possibly around. So he made the terrifying decision to run. He hoped, somehow, the lion would lose interest. It wasn't a smart move, but Ethan was just a young boy, scared out of his wits. Carefully, he climbed down from the tree, getting ready to sprint the second his feet touched the ground. He knew he wouldn't have a second to spare. As soon as he landed, he twisted away from the lion and took off running, crashing through the thick bush and trying not to make too much noise. He dared a glance over his shoulder, praying the lion wasn't there. But his heart sank. The big lion was right behind him, closing in fast. That's when he knew he had made a huge mistake. The lion was gaining ground so quickly, Ethan was sure he'd be caught any second. With everything he had, he kept running, desperate for some kind of miracle. And then, disaster struck. All Ethan could really remember was glancing back one more time to see how close the lion was. And then suddenly, his face was slammed into the dirt. Pain exploded from his ankle, and blood poured from his nose. For a moment, he forgot all about the lion chasing him and cried out in pain. As he glanced around, he saw the problem. In his mad dash to escape, he had stepped straight into a badger hole. The fall had been brutal and twisted his ankle badly. He could tell right away it was broken. The pain was worse than anything he had ever felt, and for a moment it was all he could think about. The fear of the lion was completely wiped from his mind. He just lay there, crying out, and wishing more than anything that his mom was there to help him. But what happened next snapped him right back to the real world. Still hunched over in pain, eyes squeezed shut and tears running down his cheeks, Ethan suddenly felt something warm and wet across his face. His eyes flew open in shock, and there, inches away, was the lion he had been running from. It was a female lion, and seeing her up close like this, she didn't look quite as terrifying as she had from a distance. In fact, she looked more like a giant house cat than a fearsome hunter. Ethan froze, terrified to move even a muscle. He was sure that if he did the wrong thing, she'd tear him apart. But instead of attacking, the lioness just kept licking his face gently, over and over again. When Ethan stayed still, she started nudging his face harder, almost trying to get him to react. The rough shoves shocked him enough to jolt his senses back online, and somehow he found the strength to start inching away from her. He was completely confused. Nothing he'd ever heard about lions had prepared him for this. Back at the camp, the park rangers had been very clear. Never get close to wild animals, no matter what. And now, here he was, face to face with one. He had no idea what to do next. His ankle was throbbing so badly, it made thinking almost impossible. But he knew one thing. He had to find a way back to camp. Only there would he be truly safe. The problem was, he couldn't walk. Moving hurt too much, so if he couldn't get to help, he had to figure out a way to get someone's attention, but he didn't even know where he was anymore. For now, he had to focus on the most immediate problem, the lioness. Because if she decided to change her mind about being friendly, he wasn't going anywhere at all. So Ethan sat there, studying her. Through the pain and panic, he tried hard to focus on her body language, desperate to guess what she might do next. The lioness was now slowly pacing back and forth in front of him. Every so often, she would stop, look straight at him, then continue pacing. Ethan didn't know what to think. He shifted his body slightly, trying to get a little more comfortable, but the second he moved, she was right there again, nudging and licking him like before, sending another wave of fear through him. Her actions felt strangely gentle, almost caring, but why? Was she toying with him before finally attacking? Ethan couldn't stop the quiet sobs that broke free. He had broken a bone once before, but nothing compared to this. The pain was so sharp and constant it was nearly all he could feel. Somehow, the lioness seemed to pick up on it. She eventually stopped pacing and sat right up against him, pressing her body to his side as if trying to comfort him. Ethan, though, shrank away, trembling. Sensing her comfort wasn't working, the lioness seemed to change her approach. She started nudging him harder, trying to push him upward. Ethan didn't fight her, but he also didn't want to upset her by resisting too much. After a few more gentle but firm nudges, she moved a few feet away and turned to look back at him over her shoulder. When Ethan didn't react, she came back and repeated the same strange gesture, nudging him upward, walking off a few steps, then looking back. Over and over. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that she wanted him to follow her. Was that even possible? Or was the pain and fear making him imagine things? Frustrated by his lack of movement, the lioness dug at the ground with her paw and let out a sharp, low roar. The swipe of her huge paw kicked up a cloud of dust right into Ethan's face, making him cough hard. That's when he realized just how thirsty he was. He could barely even remember the last time he'd had a drink. Until now, he hadn't thought about it, but the thirst hit him like a hammer. His mouth was dry as bone, and it made the pain and panic even worse. Everything inside him screamed that he needed to move, no matter how much it hurt. He had to take the risk. Maybe, just maybe, the lioness was trying to help him. It was better than sitting there helpless, waiting for something worse to find him. So, bracing himself against the agony in his ankle, Ethan slowly and painfully got to his feet and began to follow her. The lioness's ears perked up the second she realized Ethan was accepting her silent invitation. He had been right. She definitely wanted him to follow her. But where was she leading him? Every single step was torture for Ethan. He leaned as much weight as he could onto his good foot and used a stick he found to help take pressure off the broken one. It was clumsy and slow, but the lioness didn't seem to mind. She simply walked ahead patiently, stopping whenever he needed to catch his breath. Ethan kept hobbling along, full of questions. Where was she taking him, and why? His mind flashed back to when they first arrived at the camp. He remembered the game rangers mentioning a lioness that sometimes hung around. They said she wasn't exactly friendly, but she was curious about people. Ethan prayed this was the same lioness. If it was, maybe she was trying to lead him back to safety. Clutching onto that tiny shred of hope, he pushed himself to keep moving. At one point, he thought he heard voices calling out his name. His heart jumped, but instead of getting louder, the voices seemed to fade the farther they walked. His stomach dropped. Was he wrong to trust her? Was she leading him into even deeper danger? Doubt started creeping in, making him second-guess every step. Was he crazy, following a wild lion across the African savanna? He could be walking straight into a trap and not even know it. But just when he was about to completely lose hope, they broke through the thick bushes and came out into the open, right beside a small, fresh river. The sound of the running water hit him like a gift from heaven. Without thinking, Ethan dropped down to his knees and crawled to the water's edge. He dipped his hands in and gulped down, mouthful after mouthful. The cold water tasted better than anything he could ever remember. It was pure relief. After quenching his thirst, he suddenly froze. He had his back turned to the lioness the whole time. He whipped around, heart pounding, but there she was, just sitting calmly a few feet behind him, quietly watching over him. She didn't look ready to pounce. She looked like she was keeping guard, making sure nothing else got too close. Feeling a tiny bit safer, Ethan lay down on his back, staring up at the sky. The water had helped clear his head, and for the first time in hours he dared to believe he might actually survive this nightmare. He closed his eyes for just a moment, trying to rest, and that's when he heard it. His name. Ethan's eyes snapped open, and he jolted upright, but there was no one in sight. Just as he was about to lay back down, he heard it again. Sure enough, drifting on the breeze were distant shouts from a group of people. The lioness seemed to hear them too. Her ears were up, and she looked tense. She even let out a low, warning growl, as if trying to keep the approaching people away. But Ethan wasn't about to lose his chance at being rescued. He sucked in a deep breath and started screaming for help. Over and over he shouted, yelling everything he could think of to get their attention. He even forced himself onto his feet, waving his arms high in the air. Even if he couldn't see them, maybe they could see him. The lioness didn't like his sudden outburst one bit. She looked nervous and unsettled, pacing back and forth. Ethan couldn't help but think how backwards it all was. The people she saw as a danger were actually his only real hope. The voices started getting louder, and now Ethan could tell exactly which way they were coming from. He turned toward them, shouting even louder to guide them to him. But the closer they got, the more agitated the lioness became. She wasn't just pacing anymore. She was actively trying to move Ethan away. She started headbutting him hard, knocking him down twice in a row. She was desperate to push him in the opposite direction, like she thought she was saving him from some unseen danger. But Ethan wasn't about to let her stop him. He scrambled back to his feet every time she knocked him over, holding his ground. Then came the moment he would never forget. Through the rising noise of footsteps and crashing brush, he heard a voice. Since they were deep in the savannah, it took almost a full 24 hours before Ethan could finally see a doctor. Thankfully, his injury wasn't too serious, just a clean break. They were able to set his ankle right there and gave him some medicine to ease the pain. For Ethan, everything felt like a blur. He had passed out in his father's arms right after being rescued and drifted in and out of sleep the whole time after. So when he fully woke up, he had a million questions racing through his mind. The biggest one was about the lioness. Where was she now? The game rangers gently brought him to the edge of the camp where the lioness had stayed the entire time. They explained that no matter what they did to try and chase her off, she kept coming back, always looking for Ethan. Ethan took a long moment to stand there and thank the brave lioness. He finally understood just how much she had fought to keep him safe. Later, sitting around the campfire with his parents, he told them everything, how he had followed a guinea fowl too far and lost his way, and how he thought he was doomed until help showed up from the most unexpected place. His parents listened in stunned silence, their faces filled with both fear and gratitude. They knew they had almost lost him, but somehow, against all odds, he had made it back. It was a story Ethan knew he would be telling for the rest of his life. What an unbelievable adventure. Now it's your turn. How do you think you would have reacted if you saw a lion chasing you? Would you trust a wild predator to save you? Tell us in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this amazing story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible real-life adventures. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Predicted happened. Ethan hobbled past the lioness, ignoring the pain in his leg, and wrapped his little arms around her big head. Sobbing uncontrollably, he begged the game rangers not to hurt her. To everyone's amazement, the lioness leaned into his hug, nuzzling him gently like a giant, overgrown cat. The game rangers stared in disbelief. None of them had ever seen anything like it. Slowly, carefully, they lowered their guns. That's when Ethan's father rushed forward, scooping him up tightly into his arms, not caring for a second that a wild lion stood just inches away. The lioness gave a low, almost mournful moan, as if she understood that the man was here to protect Ethan now, too. Holding his son close, Ethan's father turned and started making his way back to camp, the game rangers following closely behind, never taking their eyes off the lioness. But to everyone's surprise, she wasn't finished yet. Instead of disappearing into the bush, the lioness quietly followed them, keeping watch until they safely reached the camp. When Ethan's mother saw him, she broke down in tears, running to them and scooping him into her arms. She rushed him to their tent, showering him with the love and care he had been dreaming of all along.